By the year 2040, walking down the street in a major city, almost every adult you make eye contact with will be single.
Which is, frankly, a staggering thought.
It really is. I want you to just, really picture that for a second. Marriage, as an institution, is facing this total systemic collapse. And we aren't talking about like a slight dip or a temporary trend here.
Right. The demographers are predicting a massive, completely counterintuitive shift. We're talking about participation in marriage potentially plummeting from historical highs of 95% down to just 10 or 15% in certain densely populated parts of the world.
Like urban India, for example.
Exactly. It completely upends the traditional life cycle blueprint that, well, almost every single person listening to this right now is raised to expect.
Yep. You grow up, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house. That was the script. But the research we are diving into today, which is this fascinating, super data-heavy look at the global crash of the marriage market, it says otherwise.
The numbers are incredibly clear.
They are. I mean, back in 2019, Morgan Stanley released demographic projections predicting that 45% of working-age women will be unmarried by 2030. And more recently, there was this 2023 YouGov survey that found 40% of urban Indians no longer even find marriage to be important.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we are essentially watching the institution of marriage face its blockbuster video moment.
That's a really good way to put it.
Right. It's a legacy system being completely disrupted, maybe even rendered obsolete by modern demands. So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out the 5 core forces driving this collapse and ultimately what happens to the physical and emotional fabric of society when we collectively stop saying, I do.
And to understand why this matters to you, the listener, we really have to look closely at the numbers. This isn't just an anecdotal, fleeting feeling of, dating is hard right now. This is backed by hard global data.
It's everywhere.
It is. Look at China. They're seeing 2.8 million divorces annually. That's the highest numbers in recent history, despite intense government campaigns encouraging people to keep families together. Or look at South Korea, where the fertility rate has plummeted to an astonishingly low 0.72.
Wow, 0.72.
Yeah. And I should state clearly up front, my goal here is to impartially explore the data and the sociological theories presented in the research. We are not here to endorse any cultural or political viewpoint.
Right, totally neutral.
Exactly. We're doing this purely to understand the mechanics behind this massive societal shift.
So if the data says we are all staying single, the obvious question is why? What is breaking the system? The research points to this really fascinating clash between our ancient evolutionary wiring and our modern financial realities.
Right, the theory of evolutionary mismatch. What's fascinating here is that human subconscious wiring hasn't changed much over the last 10,000 years.
Right.
We are, as sociologists put it, walking around modern cities with brains optimized for the savannah.
Right.
From an evolutionary standpoint, men subconsciously prioritize beauty, which historically signaled health and fertility, along with peace, meaning a lack of internal tribal conflict.
Okay.
Women, conversely, have evolved to subconsciously prioritize resources and stability. In prehistoric terms, that meant the best hunter. Today, that translates to financial security, influence, or power.
Okay, wait. I have to push back here. Are we sure this evolutionary argument isn't just a highly convenient excuse for superficial behavior?
You mean?
Well, it feels a bit like a get-out-of-jail-free card for modern shallowness. If a modern woman makes her own money and has her own career, why would she still be subconsciously hunting for a provider? Is it genuinely a hardwired bias we can't escape?
It's a fair challenge, but sociologists argue it is deeply hardwired, and they set a very revealing experiment to prove it. This was conducted in a classroom at one of India's top progressive business schools.
Like the IMs.
Yes, an elite institution where the students are highly educated and destined for high-paying corporate careers. The researchers gave a group of financially independent, progressive women a choice between 2 hypothetical men.
Okay, who are the guys?
Option 1, a fast food cashier making a meager salary, but with a heart of gold, absolute kindness, and the promise of constant emotional support.
Sounds like a catch.
And option 2, a tech unicorn founder worth massive wealth, millions of dollars, but who is explicitly described as physically unattractive, emotionally toxic, and publicly disrespectful.
Oh, please tell me they went for the nice guy with the fries.
80% of these highly educated, self-sufficient women chose the toxic tech billionaire.
You are kidding. 80%.
Yes. Even though they didn't need his money, Their primitive subconscious prioritized the extreme abundance of resources over emotional peace. They basically couldn't help it.
That is wild.
And conversely, when men in that exact same classroom were given a similar choice, a sweet, agreeable fast food worker versus a strong-headed, highly opinionated female peer who earned significantly more money than them,
Let me guess.
80% of the men chose the fast food worker. They prioritized peace and traditional dynamics over shared financial resources.
Wow. So even when our conscious brains know we don't need the money or the traditional dynamic, our subconscious brains are still aggressively shopping for baseline survival.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a phenomenon the researchers call the delusion gap, which is specifically fueled by what's known as the bare minimum trend.
Yes. The delusion gap occurs when someone's expectations in the dating market become completely unmoored from their actual dating value or demographic reality.
Right, and the research shared this incredibly specific anecdote that really paints a picture of this.
The Poon story.
Yeah, the Poon story. So there was this 27-year-old woman in Pune, India. She was earning a solid middle-class income, roughly around 12 lakhs a year.
Very respectable.
Totally. But she aggressively demanded that her future husband must be a U.S. green card holder. She literally called that her bare minimum, and her parents agreed with her, entirely feeding into this expectation. Right. So 2 years go by, she's 29, no luck, so she lowers her standards just a tiny bit. He no longer needs a green card, but he must be a graduate from an elite, globally recognized engineering or business school.
Which is still a tiny fraction of the population.
Exactly. 2 more years pass. At 31, she decides she'll settle for any engineer making a top-tier salary. But by then, she has aged out of the priority bracket for those specific high-earning men who, remember from the experiment, are subconsciously looking for different traits anyway.
Yep.
Finally, by age 34, she concludes that all men are pigs because she absolutely refused to date within her actual statistical market value from the start.
It's a tough situation.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Is it really a delusion, or is it just the free market at work? I mean, if she's financially independent, why shouldn't she hold out for someone who matches or exceeds her economic status? Why is the blame entirely on her for knowing her worth?
It's not about blame, it's about market mechanics. The delusion isn't her wanting a successful partner. The delusion is assuming that the demographic of men she desires actually prioritizes her specific traits in return.
I see.
It's a failure to understand the opposing side of the market. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not entirely her fault. It's a societal feedback loop.
And that feedback loop is heavily manipulated, which bridges us perfectly to the second major force driving the marriage collapse, the social media echo chamber. Because if biology sets the trap, social media algorithms are absolutely what spring it.
Completely.
We are supposedly more connected than ever before, yet we've never been more isolated or hyper-judgmental of each other.
The researchers describe this through what they call the horseshoe magnet theory. Think of a horseshoe magnet. The magnetic power is entirely concentrated at the two extreme ends, while the middle has almost no pull.
Right.
This perfectly mirrors social media algorithms. Algorithms don't care about truth, and they don't care about societal cohesion. They only care about retention. On these platforms, you have extreme toxic feminism on one end and the extreme toxic manosphere on the other.
Because extreme outrage drives engagement.
Exactly. Anticipatory outrage keeps you scrolling. So these two minority extreme viewpoints absolutely dominate our feeds. The platform algorithmically suppresses the moderate 80% of perfectly normal, happy couples, because content about a peaceful marriage doesn't make you stop and argue in the comments.
That makes so much sense.
The result is that men are fed a constant stream of content, making them believe all women are out to trap them for their money, and women are fed content convincing them that all men are abusive, unfaithful, or incompetent. It artificially inflates our perception of how bad the dating market actually is.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that algorithmically induced paranoia creates what sociologists call the audition effect.
Yes.
And if you are listening to this and you're single, you have probably felt this firsthand. People aren't going on dates to connect anymore. Think about your last first date. Are you actually sitting across the table listening to the person? Or are you mentally evaluating if they are better than the imaginary 27th swipe you have waiting for you on your dating app at home?
It's a state of constant comparative friction. It's an anticipatory grief.
Yeah.
You are actively rehearsing the breakup before the appetizers even arrive because the app has convinced you that someone 5% better is just one swipe away.
We've basically turned modern dating into shopping on Amazon. We have created this ridiculous 15-point filter checklist for a human being.
Mhm.
And if they don't have prime shipping, a perfect 5-star rating, and exact dimensions, we just abandon the cart.
That's a perfect analogy.
And the peer pressure surrounding this checklist is pure madness. The data highlighted a tragicomic story of 4 couples living in elite expatriate communities in Singapore and Hong Kong. On Instagram, their lives look flawless.
But the reality is a nightmare of comparison.
Exactly. One woman feels insecure, so she buys a massive multi-bedroom luxury flat because she feels living in a smaller apartment makes her a bad mother compared to influencers.
Wow.
Her friend gets jealous, forces her husband to take out a multi-million-dollar, I'm talking 5 crore loan just to upgrade their home to match, putting him under extreme psychological stress.
It's a domino effect.
It gets worse. Another woman publicly praises her husband for being naturally athletic and having a full head of hair. What happens next? The other wives literally berate their husbands, forcing 2 perfectly normal, healthy men to go get surgical hair transplants just to keep up with the social media aesthetic.
That is unbelievable.
And the one single friend in the group. Her friends tear down every guy she dates for not meeting this impossible standard, so she stays single and copes by spending tens of thousands of dollars like 5 lakhs on luxury Hermes bags.
It is a textbook example of status anxiety. And it highlights how the friction of human relationships, the constant comparison, the demands, the financial stress is becoming utterly exhausting for many people.
Which leads directly to the third force.
Right. When human dating feels like a toxic, high-pressure, peer-reviewed audition, what happens when a flawless, zero-friction alternative enters the market?
We get the tech disruption. AI spouses.
Yes. The boom of AI companionship isn't science fiction. It is already happening. In China, there is an incredibly popular app called Maojing, which translates to catbot.
Catbot.
Yes, it has over 2 million active subscribers, largely women, who explicitly prefer their AI boyfriends to real human men.
Okay, let's unpack the why here. Why choose lines of code over a physical human?
Because the AI provides 24/7, highly customized emotional support without any of the judgment, arguments, or the audition effect we just discussed. Globally, the AI girlfriend and boyfriend market is projected to hit $1 billion by 2030.
$1 billion. But hold on, doesn't a real relationship actually require friction to mean something? If an AI just perpetually agrees with everything you say, aren't you essentially just dating a mirror? How does a chatbot fulfill the deeply human need for genuine connection?
It's about hacking the brain's dopamine and serotonin pathways. From an evolutionary standpoint, human compromise is stressful because it historically meant giving up resources or risking safety. And AI completely bypasses that friction.
So it's basically pure reward.
Exactly. It delivers pure, uninterrupted validation, which triggers the exact same chemical release of oxytocin and serotonin in the brain, but without the evolutionary cost of having to compromise.
That is wild.
And the predictions get even more futuristic. By 2027, researchers expect the debut of humanoid robots capable of sophisticated physical intimacy, with the technology fully perfected between 2036 and 2040.
Wait, like Westworld.
Basically, futurologists predict a very real scenario where people might have 2 spouses, an AI or robotic spouse for perfect, frictionless emotional and physical peace, and perhaps a human partner, potentially for public appearances or societal norms.
That is both mind-blowing and slightly terrifying. It sounds like a total rewriting of human intimacy.
It really is.
But while women are increasingly securing their own financial independence and potentially fulfilling their emotional needs with AI, what exactly is the modern man's utility? Which brings us to the fourth point, the male identity crisis.
The research highlights that as the traditional provider role is disrupted by modern economics and female independence, men are facing a severe crisis of utility. When a man's historical value has been singularly tied to his ability to provide, what happens to his identity when he is no longer needed in that capacity?
The fallout described in the data is devastating. The story they shared about an elite IIT Bombay engineering graduate really hit hard.
Yes, that was a tough read.
This is a guy making an incredibly high salary in the tech sector, right? Like 1.5 crores. He builds a beautiful home, provides everything for his family, but the tech sector crashes, and he gets laid off. And immediately, almost overnight, his stock plummets to 0 in his own house.
Completely devalued.
His wife tells him to go humble himself and take a junior role working for a 32-year-old startup founder down the hall. His teenage son openly disrespects him, telling him he does nothing all day.
It's a brutal conditional reality. That man confessed to a friend that he would genuinely rather die of a sudden heart attack than endure the daily creeping loss of respect from his own wife and children.
That is just awful.
And again, the sociologists observed this, and we are looking at this strictly through a neutral, data-driven lens, that societal respect for men is still ruthlessly and almost exclusively tied to their earning potential. Regardless of how progressive a society claims to be, the data shows that when the paycheck stops, the respect evaporates.
It sounds like a man's value in a household is being treated exactly like a live stock market ticker. The moment the financial dividends start paying out, the stock is just dumped.
Precisely.
And all of this stress, this emotional distance, this feeling of being fundamentally unvalued, it fuels the infidelity boom. The statistics on this are wild.
Very alarming numbers.
Sign-ups on extramarital affair apps like Gleedon have shot up by 148%. And it's not just happening in massive cosmopolitan cities. Platforms like Ashley Madison are seeing massive sign-up surges in smaller Tier 2 cities globally, like Kanchipuram in India.
And this raises an important question about the mechanism behind the cheating. Why is this happening so rapidly? The data actually shows that 49% of people who cheat do so out of pure boredom, not necessarily because they are trapped in a deeply abusive or terrible marriage.
Half of them are just bored.
Basically, yes. The researchers noted a significant rise in thrill-seeking addiction, particularly among wealthy homemakers whose partners are constantly working, leaving them seeking excitement to fill the void. The emotional disconnect, combined with the ease of digital access, is driving people to look outside the marriage just to feel something.
You know, you can't have this level of societal disruption without an equal and opposite cultural reaction. Every extreme cultural shift triggers a massive rebellion. If the modern world is this lonely, hyper-optimized, algorithm-driven marketplace full of constant comparison and AI replacements, how are different generations reacting to it?
Let's look at the pendulum swing, starting with the tradwife movement in the United States.
Right.
The demographic data shows that anywhere from 20 to 40% of young American women are actively rejecting the boss babe, corporate hustle brand of modern feminism. Again, keeping our neutral lens, they were citing severe exhaustion, burnout, and profound loneliness. And they are intentionally choosing to return to traditional homemaker roles.
Wow, 20 to 40%.
Yes, it's a counter-trend. It's a direct rebellion against the extreme pressure of feeling like they have to conquer the corporate world while also managing a household.
And meanwhile, Gen Z is dealing with this chaos by inventing an entirely new vocabulary to describe the absolute mess of modern dating. Let's run through some of these terms from the sources, because they aren't just funny slang, they are deep psychological defense mechanisms.
They really are.
First, you have roster dating. This is keeping multiple romantic options on standby because you are so paralyzed by the paradox of choice that you refuse to commit to just one.
Exactly. It's risk mitigation applied to romance.
Then there's the black cat boyfriend. This refers to a partner who is quiet, reliable, and stays in the background to support you, like a really solid, Rahul Dravid type of team player in sports who doesn't need the spotlight, as opposed to the star athlete who causes drama.
A very safe choice.
Then there's fleabagging.
Which is a fascinating psychological response.
Right. Fleabagging is repeatedly, consciously choosing toxic partners. And the psychology behind it is that it stems from unresolved trauma. People choose chaotic partners because the chaos feels familiar and predictable, whereas genuine intimacy feels terrifying.
Self-sabotage, essentially.
Yep. Then you have shrieking, consciously dating someone way below your standard just to guarantee their absolute loyalty. And my personal favorite, woke fishing, pretending to be super progressive, quoting feminist literature, and acting enlightened purely as a manipulative tactic to get dates.
What's fascinating here is that while younger generations create these highly specific terms to rationalize and categorize their dating trauma, they are simultaneously searching for a way out. Gen Z is increasingly turning to religion and astrology apps.
Oh, the astrology boom.
Yes. The research suggests that because traditional community structures, extended families, and reliable relationship milestones have dissolved, these young people are desperately looking for an anchor. Astrology apps have literally become a substitute for therapy for millions of people. It's a way to find some illusion of certainty in a romantic landscape that feels completely random and unsafe.
So what does this all mean? Are things like woke fishing and the trad wives movement the symptoms of a generation terrified of the future, desperately trying to role play the past to find some sort of comfort?
That is a very astute way to synthesize the data. If we look at all these forces together, the evolutionary mismatch, the social media echo chambers, AI spouses, the crisis of male utility, they paint a picture of a looming loneliness epidemic.
And the stories about that are heartbreaking.
They are. The research cites the example of a 49-year-old, highly successful female corporate executive. She has millions in the bank. She has absolute freedom. She travels the world. But she confesses to researchers that she has absolutely no one to talk to on a random Tuesday evening.
Man.
They also point to elderly waiters in Las Vegas who don't need the money at all, but work the casino floor in their 70s purely because it's their only reliable source of human interaction. The stakes of abandoning community and partnership are incredibly high.
But there is an antidote, right? We don't have to end up like that. The research mentions that famous, multi-decade Harvard study on human happiness.
Yes, a very famous study.
And after tracking people for their entire lives, it boils down to something almost laughably simple. A good, lasting marriage only requires two things: friendship and respect. That's it. Not a 15-point Amazon checklist, not a multi-million-dollar flat, just friendship and respect.
It's very grounding.
The researchers casually call it the Tapri tea test, referring to those simple roadside tea stalls. The test is, can you sit on a bench, drink a cheap cup of tea, and just talk to this person for 4 hours without an agenda, without looking at your phone, and without evaluating their resume? If yes, that's it. That is the foundational bedrock of a life together.
It completely strips away the evolutionary delusions, the algorithmic social media pressure, and the hyper-consumerism that has infected modern dating. It brings it back to basic human connection.
It really does. But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've unpacked today. If human beings truly do opt out of marriage, and by 2040 we have replaced partners with AI and solo living, what happens to the physical design of our world? Will our future cities just be millions of single-occupancy micropods filled with humanoid robots, entirely devoid of large family dining tables, community centers, or playgrounds? It's a deeply lonely architectural thought.
It really is. A whole society architecturally designed for one.
Think about that the next time you find yourself scrolling through a dating app, mentally abandoning the cart because someone doesn't have a perfect 5-star rating. Are we really heading for a blockbuster moment for human love? Or can we remember how to pass the roadside tea test? Keep questioning the world around you.
Until next time.